Really, my research covers a number of different areas. I've got interests in ethical theory. For example, I've done a lot of work on virtue ethics, which is a perspective on ethics that's really, I think, a revival of old approaches to ethics that focus on a person's character. And so I've done some work on applying that, in particular to professional roles, such as the roles of doctors and other health professionals, and what sort of virtues might be relevant to those roles. I've also, in the last few years, been involved in quite a different kind of project that has been doing some empirical research on the issue of surgeon report cards. And surgeon report cards are a way of describing patients being told about the track record of surgeons. And so what's the mortality rate of the surgeon who's about to perform the operation upon you? And what are the ethical issues involved in actually telling patients that information? Well, I think one of the issues that's really a perennial question is, when is a life not worth living? And always as medical technology advances, the point where people confront that question is postponed and becomes later and later. So I don't think that question's going to go away. It's just going to be posed in a new context. I think another really crucial issue that's going to come up in 5 to 10 years, which we haven't really dealt with much now, is the question of genetic testing and screening. And at the moment in bioethics, there's a lot of fairly speculative work about human enhancement, particularly in the case of genetic enhancement. But I think as we gain a better understanding of both the role and also the limitations of genetics in the influence it has on human behaviour, again we will see the community expecting to be given access to some of the genetic tests that will be developed. And so we'll need to confront the sort of policy questions about whether or not we allow people to use genetic testing to, for example, test an embryo for deafness or for other conditions. I think a further issue that is going to come up too is that, again, with advances in genetics, we're seeing the development of sort of personalised medicine. And so instead of having a broad spectrum drug that will treat all, for example, asthmatics, there will be drugs that will be particularly responsive to the type of asthma that a particular person has. And so what that will take account of is the person's genotype, not just the conditions they present with. And so there is work going on now in pharmacogenomics to develop much more personalised medications, and that raises all kinds of ethical issues about justice in access to those medications. For example, should they be available only to people who can afford to pay for them? How much should we as a community subsidise people's access to personalised medicine? I think those are crucial issues that we're only just beginning to confront now. Really, I think one of the distinguishing characteristics of the Monash Centre for Human Bioethics is that we take a philosophical approach to bioethics, and so the sort of approaches that we consider to begin with are based on ethical theories. And so we have a strong philosophical approach to the issues, but in saying that, we also pay a lot of attention to the empirical research on the particular ethical issues we consider. Over the years there have been some quite interesting research projects on areas of reproductive ethics, so questions about the ethics of IVF in the early 1980s. There have also been some important studies done by the Centre on the ethical issues in end-of-life decision making, and especially in the context of, say, assisted suicide and voluntary euthanasia. In the last 10 years or so, again, there's been a focus on reproductive ethics. It's particularly fed off the kinds of research that's being done here by the scientists in the Faculty of Medicine. So I guess another distinguishing characteristic of the Monash Centre is the way that the research here is informed by the work being done, say, for example, by the stem cell scientists here at Monash. And I think that's a real strength of the program that we offer here. I think skills in critical analysis are crucial in bioethics, because there it's not only about identifying the ethical issues, but it's also about having the skills to be able to see, for example, when there are hidden assumptions in arguments that need to be defended, to also, I guess, check the logic of the argument and see whether or not it's a good argument, and of course also to check the conclusions of arguments. And so those sort of skills in critical analysis take some time to build up, but I think they're crucial for doing good bioethics. Really, in our programs we have around 40 students enrolled in our postgraduate coursework programs. Roughly half of those are doing the course by distance education, and in fact a number of those students are based overseas, and so it's possible to complete the Master of Bioethics by coursework entirely from overseas. Or if you begin as an on-campus student here at Clayton campus and then are posted overseas, you can then transfer to distance education mode. So we are very flexible in the sort of modes that we offer students in our postgraduate courses. Students in our master's program have an opportunity to apply for a fellowship program. There's one student per year that we send, where they can spend up to 3 months working as interns at the World Health Organization in Geneva as part of that program. And once they are there, they have worked on projects that have looked at improving the accessibility to people in developing countries to all kinds of medications that are not currently available to them. Students gain the practical experience at applying what they've learnt in the course in a very large organisation that actually is very important in sort of international terms, and so they can see how the skills that they've learnt in the course can make a difference in that context.